critically important. Can he do it for 12 rounds?
Hey, what's up guys? Eric Thayne here from Cinema Mastery, and everything you just saw was shot on one camera, one film light, and a few other random items you could find around the house. And the point of this video is to show you that you can shoot amazing cinematic looking videos even if you don't have tons of expensive camera gear. When it comes down to it, cinematography is about the art, not the gear. And yes, the tools you use are important, but not nearly as important as how you use them. And even though it's fun to talk about the cameras and lights and stuff, if you're just starting out, sometimes it can actually be a bad thing to have tons of gear because it's harder to learn how to really be resourceful, which is such a valuable thing to learn. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how we used minimal gear to create this little short film. And if you want to learn the why behind the lighting, the why behind the decisions we're making, I've got a full masterclass on lighting, which I'll link down below, that goes in depth into how to get a cinematic Hollywood look without having to buy expensive lights and stuff. So you can check that out after the video. But for now, let's jump in and show you how we did it. So the camera we used on this shoot was the Canon EOS R with a Sigma Art 50mm lens, and the light was an Aperture 120D Mark II. Now these are definitely not the cheapest camera and lights out there, but don't think that you have to use this exact combo to get this look. Again, pay attention to the technique more than the gear, and you should be able to recreate this with any camera and a decent light. So the first scene we shot was of our talent wrapping his hand and getting ready for the boxing ring. I knew I wanted him to be sitting in a chair, and I wanted to make sure there was plenty of texture and depth in the background, so I placed him in front of these punching bags at about a 3/4 angle to the camera. For the red kicker on the right, I set up the 120D just outside of frame on the right and hung up a red t-shirt on a hanger in front of the light. This light is normally daylight balanced, which means it has a color temperature of around 6,000 Kelvin, which is pretty cool. So by shining the light through the red t-shirt, I was able to change the color to red. Now, even though this light is an LED, it still does get pretty warm at full brightness, so I put the t-shirt a good distance away from the light and dimmed the light a little bit to make sure it didn't get too hot. So if you're going to try this at home, make sure you're really careful about this because we really don't want you starting a fire. Now, since I had the light backed up away from the t-shirt, this means that there was a lot of spill from the light entering our scene and causing lens flares on the camera. So I took another black t-shirt and used it as a flag to block the light from spilling. Next, I needed a nice key light on our subject, since the red kicker was more like an accent light and the subject's face was still dark. Since we didn't have another LED light to use, I took a laptop computer, set the screen to full brightness, and just went to google.com to get a nice big white light source. I made the web browser full screen and bam, we had a full-blown light panel for our key light. I had an assistant hold the laptop up above our talent at about a 45-degree angle in order to light the talent on the reverse side of his face. So we still kept a nice moody look and didn't blend in with the red light on the right. The reason we put the laptop above our talent was to make sure it looked like the light was coming from some sort of fluorescent fixture or another light hanging from the ceiling, since that's how a boxing gym like this would normally be lit. And this is called motivating your light. And it's important to think about to make sure your light looks natural in the scene. Now, since the scene was so dark and we didn't have much light in the background, we really needed something to help give it more depth. Now, normally I would use some other lights to light up the background and give it some pockets of light here and there, so it's not just black back there. But since we're working with minimal gear here, I had to get creative. So I took my phone and turned on the flashlight and taped it to one of the punching bags in the background. Now, this light is obviously not bright enough to really light up the background, but it at least gave us a little spot of light to add some highlights to the scene and add just a little bit of depth. So there you go, that's how we did the first shot of the video. Now, the next scene was with our talent just kind of mentally prepping for his boxing session, so it was less about what he's actually doing and more about what's going on in his head. So because of that, I really wanted to do some sort of abstract lighting effect that would really push the mood of the piece. So I had an idea to do a type of water effect on the light, which would make it look more abstract and ethereal. To do this, I took our 120D and rigged it up so it was pointing directly into a mirror that I got from IKEA, which I laid down on the floor to the left of the camera. Then I used a bucket to flood the mirror with water and a big fan to blow on the water and make it keep moving. When you do this, it makes the light move move in really interesting ways, kind of like the sun reflecting off of a swimming pool. I shot this scene from a wide angle standing straight in front of the talent so we would get a side lit effect from the light, and then I shot some close-ups from the shadow side of our subject so the light would reverse key him from the other side. I would say that probably 9 times out of 10 I try to reverse key my subject and position them so the shadows are closest to the camera, which gives you way more depth and shape in the light on their face. Next up, we shot the actual boxing scene in the boxing ring. I knew I wanted to make this one extra moody with plenty of shadows, but I also needed to make sure the light was motivated. Since a boxing ring like this would normally be lit with some stadium lights or a lighting grid from above, I wanted to make sure I used a similar effect in this scene. So I used a magic arm to clamp the aperture 120D to the rafters above the boxing ring, and I had it point straight down towards our talent. I probably could have left the lighting just like this, but the light would have been really harsh, and usually harsh light from above doesn't look very flattering. So if you can diffuse the light even just a little bit, it makes it look way better. I grabbed a white bed sheet from my daughter's bedroom and wrapped it around the light with tape to make a kind of DIY space light that would give us a nice soft flattering light from above. Again, just like with the t-shirts, I made sure there was plenty of breathing room around the light, and I had the light dimmed down quite a bit to make sure it wasn't putting off too much heat. This setup gave us a really nice soft light that looked like natural light coming from above the boxing ring. Now, similar to the first scene, the only problem with this shot is that we still had all the space behind our talent that was pitch black. And since we didn't have another light to work with, I had to get creative again. But rather than using my phone flashlight on this one, I grabbed some different colored glow sticks and broke them open and stuck them up on top of some of the punching bags in the background, which gave the shot a few little bits of colored bokeh to help open up the background a little bit. Now, the glow sticks obviously are not bright enough to really light up the background, but I think the little spots of color were enough to at least add some interest to the background, especially considering what we're working with. So with that, we had everything set up for the boxing scene, and I went ahead and started shooting. I got a few angles outside the ring and inside the ring, and I always positioned the talent to get the light exactly where I wanted it on him. When I moved in for a close-up, I took a spray bottle and sprayed the talent's face to make it look like he was sweating, because I wanted to show how hard he was working in the arena. And that was it for this scene. The last scene we shot was the car scene where we had our talent sitting in the car using his phone before going inside. Just like in the other scenes, it was really dark inside, so I had to use a few different light sources to get the effect that I wanted. So first I placed our talent in the driver's seat of the car and had him turn his phone on so it would light up his face. And to make sure we were getting plenty of light and the right color of light, I had him go to google.com in his web browser and turn up the brightness on his screen to 100%. I wanted to light his face with the phone first since that would be his key light, which makes sense since he's actually looking at his phone, so it's motivated. Next, I needed to add a little bit of backlight to the subject since the background in the car was so dark. So I took my phone flashlight again and propped it up in the back so it was just slightly backlighting the subject. And lastly, I wanted some sort of light reflecting in the driver's window to make it look like there was a neon sign or something where he was parked. So I took our trusty laptop again, I found an image of a red square on Google Images, and I zoomed in on it until it filled the whole screen. Then I had an assistant hold the laptop at just the right angle so we could get a little sliver of light reflecting on the window. And last but not least, I wanted to add some water to the car window to make it look like it had been raining to add more to the mood I was going for in the video. So I took a spray bottle with water and just sprayed down the window until the water started running down it. Now, one other quick thing I want to point out is that you'll notice in some of the shots there's a kind of hazy, out of focus reflection effect happening in the foreground. And I always get people asking me how I create those effects. Usually what I'll do is I'll use some sort of glass prism or other glass object in front of the lens to get some of these effects. And I love the dreamy, artistic look you can get from them. But since we're going with the theme of minimalism for this shoot, I actually took a spoon from my kitchen and used that instead. And that's the thing about this. You can play with all sorts of different objects you can use in front of the lens to get different effects to add to your image. So feel free to mess around with it and see what you can get. And there you go. There's a quick breakdown of how you can shoot and light an entire little short video using just one camera and one film light and some everyday objects you find around the house. Now, by the end of shooting this video, I was definitely wishing I had some of my other gear to work with, which would have made this a lot easier. But at the end of the day, if you know the theory behind the lighting and you know how to be resourceful with what you have, you could still create really high quality cinematic looking videos with very minimal gear. Because when it comes down to it, it's not the gear that makes the image, it's you, the artist, that makes it. So if you want to learn more about lighting and how to use even minimal gear to create amazing lighting setups, I highly recommend checking out my Lighting Secrets course, which I'll link to down below. Inside, I'll teach you the theory behind the lighting, all the most popular lighting techniques used in Hollywood and commercial work, and give you even more breakdowns of work that I've shot for my clients and exactly how I've done it. Anyway, the link will be down below. I hope you've enjoyed this video and gotten some value out of it. If you have any other questions, feel free to comment down below and I'll either respond or consider it for a future video. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.